People who buy houses or buy a house for the first time very often ask me what is the procedure at the end of the process. In other words, when do they get the keys and so on. So the procedure or process for buying a second-hand house is as follows. Let's say the closing day is the 15th of July. Well then, on closing day, the purchaser solicitor is supposed to have received all of the closing documents from the vendor solicitor and will have checked them. The purchaser solicitor will also have sent all of the balance of the purchase monies to the vendor solicitor. And at that stage, the purchaser solicitor will look for searches against the vendors and searches against the property to be certified by the vendor's solicitor. And once both parties, the solicitor for the vendor and the solicitor for the purchaser, are satisfied, the solicitor for the vendor will authorise release of the keys to the purchasers, and the solicitor for the purchaser will authorise release of the funds to the vendor's solicitor, and the sale is then completed. The vendor's solicitor has the money and the keys can be released to the purchasers, who go into the estate agent and pick up the keys. That's essentially how the closing happens in relation to a second-hand house. The barge down there. Beautiful day here. Now the situation is different in relation to, one thing that I should have mentioned in relation to the second-hand house is we would always advise the purchaser to carry out a pre-closing inspection. Now all we can do is advise the purchaser to do that. It's up to themselves whether to do it or not. If they're going to do it, they need to organise that themselves with the estate agent. In other words, contact the estate agent, make arrangements to meet him or her the day before closing or closing day, just to carry out a final inspection before the sale completes. That's always a good idea, and that's why we always recommend it to our purchasing clients. That's the story in relation to a second-hand house. God, the old harbour's looking great today. It's an absolutely stunning day. Absolutely stunning. Don't know what, it's supposed to get up to 25 or 26 degrees C. This is the harbour here in Enfield. God, it looks fantastic, it really does. There's a couple of barges, 3 or 4 barges along there now as well. That's the canal. Oh, all the fish there, you can see the little fish. Tiny fish. The story in relation to a new house is slightly different. If you're buying in a new build, you're lucky enough to be buying in a new build, then eventually when the house is actually built, we go up there and sit in the shade. Actually, it's very, very warm in the sun. If you're buying a new build, the vendor's solicitor will issue a notice of completion to the purchaser solicitor. This notice of completion is formal notice that the work needed to build the house that formed the contract between the builder and the purchaser, that work has been completed, and therefore a notice of completion will be served by the vendor solicitor. Once that happens, then the purchaser would be invited to do some snagging, carry out snagging. Very nice. So new property, vendors, builder solicitor sends notice of completion to the purchaser solicitor. At that point then the purchasers should go out and do snagging. So they carry out snagging with the site foreman or whoever, representative of the builder. Now there's this train going by now. and they will have a list perhaps of things that need to be fixed, need to be sorted out, etc. If that's the case, then they leave the list with the site foreman, and they go back then again a week later or a fortnight later when the jobs are done, and once the snagging is completed and they're satisfied with that, well then they let their solicitor know that they're happy to complete. Again, the purchaser solicitor will organise the funds, all of the funds, to be gathered together and sent to the builder solicitor, and the builder solicitor will hold the funds in trust pending completion. The builder solicitor will send the closing documents of title, to the purchaser solicitor, which again will be held in trust pending completion. When both parties are happy, then the solicitor for the vendor and the solicitor for the purchaser are happy. The solicitor for the purchaser will authorise the release of the funds, and the solicitor for the vendor will issue a letter authorising picking the keys up from either the site foreman or perhaps the estate agent or wherever. So that's how the sale ends up or completes at the end of a conveyance, a purchase for either new property or second-hand property. Hope you find the video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you hit the thumbs up button down below. Thank you very much.